Hello, welcome back. This is another seventh grade math video. And for this video, we're going to be talking about how to subtract integers. Again, integers are positive and negative whole numbers. Okay, so when we subtract integers, we're going to use a method that can be called many different names, but basically the idea is keep, change, change. This is very similar to keep, change, flip that we use when we're dividing fractions. Keep, change, change means that I'm going to keep the first integer the same. So I'm going to rewrite -2 right there. I'm going to change from subtracting to adding. And my second change is I'm going to change the sign of the second number. So that's going to go from being a positive 1 to a -1. Then I'm going to use my adding integers rules to add those together. So now if I was adding these integers, since they have the same sign, I'm going to keep that sign. So I'm going to keep that negative sign, and then I'm going to add the numbers together. So 2 plus 1 is 3. And if those adding integers rules are kind of throwing you off when I said that, check out some of my earlier videos about adding integers, and that'll make a little more sense. So the answer to this one is -3. Okay, here's our next one. And again, we're going to be using keep, change, change as our method for doing this. Now, yeah, so keep, change, change. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'm going to rewrite the first integer, which is -7. I'm going to change from subtraction to adding, and then I'm going to change the sign of the second integer from being +5 to -5. Then I can use my adding integers rules to complete this equation. Since they both have the same sign, which is negative, I'm going to keep that sign, and then I'm going to add those numbers together. 7 plus 5 would be 12. So this answer would be -12. Okay, here is our next one. We're going to take 1 and subtract 2. So you may have learned a long time ago when you were first learning how to add and subtract that you can't take 2 away from 1, which is not true. You actually can. They just don't tell you that until you're much older, about the age you are now when you're learning how to deal with integers. So keep, change, change. Oh, and I remember what I was going to say during the last example. I was going to say that anytime you come across subtraction, you can use keep, change, change. Even if you're doing two positive numbers that you're subtracting and the first one's bigger than the second one, that's okay. You can still use keep, change, change. It works for all subtraction equations. So keep means I'm going to keep that first integer the same. So I'm going to rewrite the 1 right there. I'm going to change from subtraction to adding. And then I'm going to change the sign of the second integer. So it's going to go from being a +2 to a -2. So I'm going to go ahead and write that right there. Now I'm going to use my adding integers rules to finish this up. So here I have different signs. So what that means is I need to keep the sign of the larger number. 2 is bigger than 1 and 2 is negative. So that means my answer is going to be negative. And now I need to subtract the numbers. So 2 minus 1 is 1. And again, if those adding integers rules seem a little fuzzy, go back and check some of my earlier videos where we practiced that. Okay, here is my next one. We're going to do -1 minus 2. Again, we're going to use keep, change, change. So I'm going to keep that first integer the same. That -1 is going to stay the same. I'm going to change from subtracting to adding. So I'm going to change that to a plus. And I'm going to change that second integer, which is right now a +2 to a -2. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as a -2. Now, according to my adding integers rules, these have the same sign. So I'm going to keep that sign, which is negative, and then I'm going to add the numbers together. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So the answer to this equation would be -3. Okay, here is our last example for today's video. Again, we're going to be using keep, change, change to subtract those integers. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite and keep that first integer at -6. I'm going to change this from subtraction to adding, and then I'm going to change the sign of the second integer. So that's going to go from being a -1 to a +1. Now I'm going to use my adding integers rules to finish it. I have here some different signs. And according to the adding integers rules, I keep the sign of the bigger number, which in this case is 6, and 6 is negative. So we're going to keep that negative sign. And then I have to subtract the numbers. So 6 minus 1 is 5. So the answer to this would be -5. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in another video soon.